Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. This is Brett Tusshaus from Deltek. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us for our latest installment of Have You Seen Deltek Vision Lately? Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get into the depth of the content here. We will be taking questions throughout the webinar, and if you have a question, go ahead and use the GoToWebinar panel that you see on your screen to post those questions. We will take the questions at the end of the webinar, so I won't be answering questions in line during the presentation, but we'll definitely have some time at the end to take some questions and answer those questions live here on the webinar. The other housekeeping item that I wanted to pass along is we will be sharing the slides from this presentation as well as a recording of the presentation tomorrow via an email to everyone that attended this session. So no need to jot stuff down quickly or take screenshots or anything like that. We will share this, this slide deck with everyone that's attended here today. So again, this is Have You Seen Deltek Vision Lately? My name is Brett Tusshaus. I'm one of the product managers on the Vision product management team. And we have a lot that we want to talk about with you here today. There's a lot going on, as there always is, within the Vision world here at Deltek. And a lot of that we want to share with you today in terms of what's going on today and what will be going on in the future for the rest of 2015 here, as well as a little bit beyond 2015. Pretty simple agenda that we're going to go through here today. Talk a little bit about accessibility, and that sort of surrounds our strategy and philosophy in regards to how we're developing Vision these days and the different components of the Vision solution. Talk a little bit of an adjustment to our release cadence that I think everyone will find good, and it's been based on a lot of feedback that we've gotten from all of our customers. And then we'll jump into the depth of the roadmap in terms of where we are today, what we're planning on delivering tomorrow, and looking into the future in regards to what we're focused on from a thematic perspective beyond 2015. And then I'll finish up with just a few slides on some call to action, some things that you guys can leave here today with in terms of things that you can do to learn more, to take next steps, and to really push that value of Vision deeper and deeper into your organizations by upgrading to the latest releases and learning more about our latest releases and where we're going with the Vision product itself. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into our primary content here today. And the first thing, like I said, I want to talk about is what I'm calling accessibility. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because in the past couple of years, we have introduced other components of the Vision solution beyond the Smart Client, or what we like to call our core product of Vision. And that has resulted from us coming to the realization that, you know, Vision at its roots, at its birth, at its conception, was really a back office finance product, which in the years since it's been introduced has really grown into much, much more than that, beyond just the core finance and back office, into the mid office and the front office. And there is an opportunity we have seen and discovered to push the value of Vision much deeper and much further into your organizations by enabling everyone within the organization to utilize and to leverage the Vision solution itself. And as a result of that sort of realization and a bit of an expansion of our focus, we've introduced things like Navigator and our mobile solutions, our touch solutions. And sometimes that creates some confusion on where people do what to, or where people go to do certain things within the product. And really what this is all about, and what our primary strategy and philosophy behind this is, to create as much accessibility as possible. Yes, you can do your timesheet in the core product. Yes, you can do it in Navigator. Yes, you can do it in Touch. But that's very deliberate. We want to put the things that are used most commonly by the broadest group of our Vision users in organizations like yours. We want to deliver that functionality in as many different ways, as many different interfaces that we can, so that it is accessible to everybody within your organization in the way that they need to access it. And one of the things that we've done is we've sort of put more focus on these other areas, both in terms of front office and mid-office functionality, is try to give people a visual on what this means. And I think this graph, if you will, does a very, very good job at that in terms of what the expectation is, what we're thinking as we introduce things like Navigator and Touch in terms of where people will live and where people will or what interface people will use to get certain things done. We have the core client that's been around since the first days of Vision, and that's really intended to be where those people that spend every day or every hour of every day in the Vision product doing heavy transaction entry and a lot of data entry. That's really where that smart client, that core client, comes into play. And then in the middle we have our Navigator solution, which is our browser and tablet-based interface that is focused on primarily front office workers and some mid-office functionality, project managers, business development people, your general employees. It includes functionality like project planning, as well as time and expense and ability to enter your timesheets and your expenses. And you'll see as we get through this presentation today a place where people can go to do approvals and that type of thing. And then, of course, on the other end of the spectrum, we have our touch apps, our mobile applications. And really what we've done and what we'll continue to do with our touch and mobile applications is expose that functionality that makes the most sense in a mobile delivery method. Right now we have our timesheets and our expense reports. You'll see approvals coming soon. Then, of course, we've got our CRM functionality as a part of our mobile applications through our touch solutions. So, this spectrum in terms of the front office to the front and mid office to the back office really explains or demonstrates why we've been introducing these other components as a part of the Vision solution. In addition to the core client, which is where Vision started, and now into Navigator and our touch mobile solutions. So hopefully as you and your organization start to adopt these other components of the Vision solution, you can see where those solutions come into play and why we're giving you so many different options and making Vision as accessible as possible to the people within your organizations. One of the other things that I wanted to talk about here today before we get into the sort of the meat of the roadmap and where we are today and where we're going tomorrow is also our release cadence. About 2.5 years ago, we embarked on a new release cadence that did a summer and winter release of feature release of Vision. At that time, we started doing 2 releases a year, one in the June timeframe and one in the November-December timeframe. We made this change in response to many of our customers expressing, wanting more, wanting it more frequently, wanting to get updates and really find new ways to leverage the Vision solution. And what we did was listen to customers as we went to this twice-a-year release cadence and came to the conclusion that twice a year was probably a little bit too much for many of our customers, and it was a little difficult to consume those releases at that pace. So as of this year, we're going to go to 1 release per year in the winter time frame, and you'll see some timelines here as I get a little bit deeper into the roadmap. But from this point forward, as a response to the customer feedback that we've gotten, we're going to move to an annual release, and that will be a November release. And again, you'll see a more definitive timeline as we get through the rest of this presentation. Now, the one thing I will point out is you will see Touch and Navigator releases more frequently, specifically this year. We do have a Touch and a Navigator release that we're doing in mid-year, and then another release that we'll do in the November-December timeframe as well. Whether or not that continues permanently in terms of doing more frequent Touch and Navigator releases, we'll have to see how that plays out. But right now, we want to continue to push additional functionality and features into our Navigator and Touch platforms, so we're still doing those a little bit more frequently than we're doing our primary feature releases of Vision. So as I said, as of this year, moving to a single feature release in the winter time frame, like I said, late November for the next Vision release. And you'll see that timeline in a little bit more specificity here in a second. So with that introduction in place, what I really want to jump into now is the meat of the presentation in terms of the roadmap and where we are today and what we're working on for tomorrow and what we're looking at for the future as well. But before I talk specifically about sort of the today, tomorrow, and future, what I really wanted to do as well is give everyone a glimpse into what's happened over the past 2.5 years. As I said at the outset of our presentation, there's really been a lot going on in the Vision space for the past 2.5 years. We've done 5 feature releases in the past 2.5 years. Our 7.0 release, 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, and 7.4. And during that same 2.5-year stretch, we've also introduced our touch mobile apps and Navigator. So we have, like I said, been very, very busy over the past 2.5 years and have really expanded the value that Vision can bring to your organizations, not only through these feature releases, but obviously also through our Navigator and touch solutions as well. And the bullets that I have on this slide certainly don't list everything that's come out in all these releases. These are just some of the highlights, some of the big ticket items that we've introduced. And for those of you that may still be on a 6X platform or some of the early releases of 7, we wanted to put this in front of you because the importance of upgrading and the value that you get out of upgrading is something we want to make sure that we put in front of you as much as possible so that you take the steps and are incented to move to the latest release so that you can take advantage of all of this. Some of the big things that we've introduced in these 2.5 years, obviously Navigator and Touch are a part of that. Our user-defined info centers, our invoice approval functionality, support for company-paid credit cards, timesheet auditing, a significant change to our compensation breakout functionality, many of the internationalization features that we've done for countries like Belgium, Colombia, Germany, and France, and some additions that we've made on the CRM side in terms of the ability to produce proposals in InDesign and a newly updated Vision Performance Management module that really takes business intelligence to a whole new level in the context of Vision. So like I said, a lot has been going on these past 2.5 years. We encourage you all to learn more about that. We'll talk about how you can learn more about everything that's going on as we get to the tail end of this presentation. But hopefully you can see from this list and the rest of what we're going to talk about here today the value of upgrading and the potential that exists to leverage much of this value that we're introducing in our new releases and push that value within your organizations much deeper and much further so that you can reap the benefits. Now, typically when we do a roadmap presentation like this or an overview or a have you seen Vision lately presentation, we try to look at it in sort of 3 categories: today, tomorrow, and future. Today being the most recent release that we've delivered to the Vision using organizations. Tomorrow being the release that we're currently and actively working on. And then, of course, future, the themes and the things we're looking at beyond that next release that we've started to work on and started to research. And that's the approach that I'm going to take here today from this today, tomorrow, and future perspective. Now, I'll also wrap into that where we're going with Touch and where we're going to Navigator, sort of in that same 3 time frames of today, tomorrow, and future. So let's start with the today view. Some of you may be aware, and you may be not. This may be news for some of you as well, but we did do a brand new release of Vision just over 2 weeks ago now, just at the end of January. Our Vision 7.4 release came out, and this was a jam-packed release, and I'll talk about what was included in this release in a bit more detail here in a second, but it really covers a lot of areas of the product. We did focus on some internationalization, which we have been doing in a number of our releases lately. A brand new approval engine, which I think everyone will get really excited about, especially as we expand that functionality into other areas of the product. Some improvements in project planning, specifically task dependency, an overhaul to a certain extent of our purchasing functionality, and then some things around invoice template editor and some general accounting stuff, both within the GL and budgeting refinement. So like I said, Vision 7.4 was released just in the end of January, a couple of weeks ago. It's available to all of you today. And let's talk in a little bit more detail about what we included in this particular release, some things that to get you excited, to prompt you to take a look at upgrading to Vision 7.4 and start to leverage the value of this particular release. Now, the internationalization items, specifically with Vision 7.4, we focused on Germany. And some of you have maybe heard us talk about how we look at internationalization, and some of you may be looking at this and thinking, well, I don't really work internationally, so does this really apply to me? And what I want to emphasize with all of you is that when we do internationalization items within the Vision product, we look at it in a way that not only accomplishes what we need to accomplish to function in a specific geography, in this case Germany, but we also look at it in a way that we can add robustness and flexibility and power to the Vision product as a whole, so that all of our vision user organizations gain value from that effort that we put into internationalizing the product. And there's a great example of that within Vision 7.4 that I'll talk about here in a second. In terms of the internationalization items that we did for this particular release that were driven by the German market, some things that we're calling HOAI, which is a specific requirement in Germany in terms of how fees are structured on engineering and architectural projects, a pre-invoicing functionality, and then some specific things around reporting that are required for Germany, as well as some controls and audit functionality required for Germany, specifically open and closing periods, an audit trail for that, as well as control around changing account names, and then a fee estimating application, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit more detail here in a second. The request for prepayment was actually something that is statutorily required within the German market. This is really unlike an invoice, as it doesn't impact the GL in any way until a cash receipt is received. It's slightly like a retainer, but it's a little bit different in that it does allow a cash receipt to be posted after the request. It's really a way of submitting to a client, if you will, the fact that a fee has been requested on a specific project. You can display this information in prepayment history on the final invoice, and you can apply the prepaid amounts to the regular invoice when that invoice is finalized. So there may be some usage of this outside of the German market. Like I said, it was a requirement for the German market, but again, it is something that, as you learn a little bit more about it, it may come into play within your organization as well. Now, there was some very specific functionality that we had introduced in Germany, as I said earlier, related to a statutory requirement called HOAI, which puts regulations around how fees are structured for both engineering and architecture projects that are delivered within the German market. As we looked at this, we thought it might really only be specific to the German market. However, as we started to talk about talk to customers outside of the German market in regards to how this would work and what type of functionality it would create within Vision, we actually came to the conclusion, the realization that a lot of Vision using organizations could take advantage of the functionality required to meet this HOAI regulation within Germany. As a result, we created this new piece of functionality called a fee estimating tool in the Vision product to meet the HOAI requirement, and as a result, we think a lot of Vision user organizations are going to see this fee estimating tool and actually find that they can use it for their organizations as well. Basically, what it allows you to do is to build the project work breakdown structure and compensation values for that work breakdown structure into a fee estimate. And you can use what's called service profiles. Think of them as sort of costing templates that you can reuse over and over to build the work breakdown structure and fee for a project. The way this works is inside of opportunities, you can see on the screenshot there we've got a new fee estimate tab, and you can essentially break out your entire work breakdown structure and assign fee percentages and costs to that to those different levels of work breakdown structure, as I said, to generate that fee. You can then use that fee estimate to build the work breakdown structure in the project itself when you go from the opportunity to the project. So again, very specific functionality that was driven by something required within Germany, but that turned into a tool, the fee estimating tool, that we feel that a lot of Vision using organizations will be able to take advantage of. As I said at the outset, approvals were a big part of Vision 7.4, and the way we look at approvals, at least for the 7.4 releases, this is really phase one in what's going to be a multi-phased approach to introducing new approval functionality throughout the entire Vision solution. In Vision 7.4, call it phase one of approvals, we basically put all of the foundation in place for a new approval engine that allows for multi-step, conditional and delegatable approvals. So let's talk a little bit about what exactly that means. So conditional approvals. For example, if I'm submitting something like a purchase order and based on how your organization is set up. You have certain people that need to approve purchase orders that are above $100,000, and then certain people that need to approve purchase orders that are above $250,000 or something along those lines. What you can do is you can create an approval workflow that will route that approval based on those various conditions. So much more robust, much more powerful than some of the flat approvals that we have in the Vision system today. In addition, you can do delegatable approvals, so that if I'm away from the office or someone's away from the office and as a result is not going to be able to manage and facilitate their approvals, they can be delegated to someone else. And then you have multi-step approvals, so that you can go to person X to have it approved first, and then it needs to go to person Y to have it approved for the second step in that approval process. So much more robust, much more flexible approval functionality with this new approval engine that we're introducing in Vision 7.4. Now, the first place that we're going to see this new approval engine manifest itself in the Vision product is within purchasing. We built a whole new application for purchasing approvals within the Vision 7.4 release that will allow you to do some of the stuff that I just talked about in terms of the multi-step and the conditional approvals, and really gives sort of a whole new face to the approval side of the purchasing module within Vision that I think all of our purchasing users and anybody out there that's perhaps interested in starting to use the purchasing module within Vision really be able to see a huge benefit in regards to how that module works. So as I said, brand new approval engine, all the foundation put in place in Vision 7.4 for this new approval engine. That's phase one, as well as applying it to the purchasing area. You're going to see as we start to talk about Vision 7.5 and beyond how we're going to take this approval engine and apply it to other areas of the product as well. And as far as purchasing goes, it wasn't just the new approval functionality that we've done in Vision 7.4. We've really taken a step back and looked at purchasing as a whole. We've heard a lot of chatter around purchasing in the past couple of years. We think it's a result of changes in how your organization, your businesses are working, new types of business models that are out there for the typical Vision using organization, and as a result, there's more of a need for purchasing type functionality within the Vision product and within the Vision using organizations. So as a result, like I said, we took a little bit of a step back from the purchasing module, got a lot of feedback from those customers that are using the purchasing module today, and made some changes to meet that feedback, to meet the needs that we're hearing out there. We've made the purchasing process and the PO process and that sort of thing much more project-centric. We've introduced a brand new info center, an equipment info center that allows you to keep track of equipment just like you keep track of employees and clients and contracts through an info center. We've added the ability to attach documents to and throughout the purchasing project process, just like we added transactional document management into expense reports and AP vouchers in Vision 7.1. We've now extended that to the purchasing module as well. The create voucher from PO process has been enhanced and expanded and made a little bit more project-centric. And we've done some other things around usability improvements and also added some limitations in regards to not to exceed amounts throughout the change order process. So like I said, we took a little bit of a step back, listened to much of the feedback that we get around the purchasing module, and made changes in addition to the whole approval functionality to the purchasing module as a whole to make it more appealing, more useful to those organizations out there that need to leverage Vision for purchasing functionality. A huge new feature in Vision 7.4, which is something that we've heard requests for many, many years, is task dependencies within project planning. And this is also a phased approach. So Vision 7.4 is sort of phase one of task dependencies, and then we're going to do some additional stuff in Vision 7.5 this year for task dependencies, which you'll see a little bit more details on here in a second as we talk about what we're doing for our next release. But in Vision 7.4, the basic task dependency functionality is there. You can now have critical path on a project plan so that you can link tasks together. And as you adjust timeframes on some tasks, those link tasks will adjust as well. You have an interactive Gantt chart with true drag and drop functionality, the ability to link and drag and drop these schedule items, as you can see on the top screenshot there, and that's linked to the labor tab as well. So as I change things in this Gantt view in regards to the task dependency, my labor planning grid will be updated as well. We do support lag and lead times between tasks as well. So again, the ability to have that critical path, that task dependency functionality directly within my project plans. It probably will come as not a big surprise to many of the people on this call that are watching this particular webinar that one of the areas we get the most enhancement requests around are invoice template editor changes, more flexibility in regards to invoice templates. We know there's a lot of needs out there because of the clients that we have, the organizations that we work for, all of those things, to have a lot of flexibility in terms of what our invoices look like when we deliver them to our customers. So we've taken sort of the top 5 items that we hear most frequently in regards to invoice templates, and we've made changes in the invoice template editor to accommodate those particular items. So the ability to group billing phases is something that we've added to our invoice templates. The ability to insert fields from the Project Info Center. So that includes native fields as well as user-defined fields. So if you've got something within the Project Info Center that you want to include on the invoice, you can now add that, that information through your invoice template editor. The ability to highlight the invoice total, we see with a lot of custom invoices that customers have done that they bring highlight to the invoice total itself, so you can now do that as well. And then the ability to hide certain things, so to hide the detail subtotals, just to create a little, or to eliminate some of the noise that you'll typically see on some invoices to make it a little bit easier to read. And then also the ability to hide all details within the various invoice sections. So again, these are the top 5 items that we found so many customers asking about that we've added to the invoice template editor functionality to make it more flexible and to hopefully reduce the need for custom invoices as much as possible out there. And then around the general ledger and budgeting refinements, we've made a number of changes in regards to journal entries, both recurring journal entries and reversing journal entries, the ability to control and schedule both of these recurring journal entries and reversing journal entries. And then one of the items that we've changed in regards to budgeting is some improvements to the profit planning monitor reports. This is the ability to include budget amounts for future periods so that you can look from a forecasting perspective to future periods when you're looking at the Profit Planning Monitor. Previously, before Vision 7.4, the Profit Planning Monitor did not allow you to look at future periods. You could only look at periods that were open or had been opened and closed within the system. So the ability to look at future periods is now part of the Profit Planning Monitor report. So that covers the primary items that were introduced in the Vision 7.4 release. Again, that release became available a couple weeks ago and is available to all of you today. Now, beyond the core product, we also did a Navigator release and the Touch release. So let's talk a little bit about some of the changes that were made in the Navigator release that came out just a couple weeks ago as well. So some minor stuff, we did some changes to ETC and EAC in terms of how we handle those values so that there's consistency between Navigator values and the values that you see within Core Vision. We removed the T records, for those of you familiar with transfer items in accounts receivable, and we've removed those from the aged AR to again, sort of match up what we're seeing within the Vision, the core product. And then we also made some changes to the conversion process for changing Vision plans into Navigator plans to deal with the newly introduced task dependency functionality that came within the Vision 7.4 release. So there was not a ton of new features in this latest release of Navigator, but it actually sets us up. We did a bunch of behind-the-scenes work in this release of Navigator as well to set us up for the next release of Navigator, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail in a second. Now, we also did a Touch release just in January as well, along with the Navigator in Vision 7.4. And it's interesting, it seems like we introduced Touch, just a few weeks ago or a few months ago, but touch has actually been around now for we're going on just over 2.5 years, almost 3 years since we introduced our first touch release. It's hard to believe it's been around that long, but it has. And one of the things that we realized several months back is, we've continued to push new functionality out within our touch applications, and as a result, a lot of you started using the application and started giving us feedback. So what we decided to do with Touch 1.4 was take a step back and look at all this feedback we were getting and really focus on usability enhancements and some updates to the interface based on that feedback versus a whole new feature release and a new set of functionalities. So the Touch 1.4 release does not introduce any major new piece of functionality, but does introduce a number of usability enhancements as well as an updated interface. When I say updated interface as well, a lot of it has to do with some things that we wanted to change to match some new UI guidelines, specifically around iOS, as well as some things to prepare us for other functionality that we want to introduce in the touch interface in the future. The usability enhancements were those things that we kept hearing over and over, from customers. We'd really like it if it worked this way or did that or did this. One of the great examples there is, if you're familiar with our touch timesheets, prior to Touch 1.4, you had to use the scroller wheel to put in your hours. We've added a new feature in Touch 1.4 that allows you to just type in your hours rather than use that scroller wheel, which for some people makes it a little bit quicker. So those are the types of things that we did within Touch 1.4, again, released just this past January and available to all of you today. So that brings me to the end of the today component of the roadmap and puts us into the tomorrow release. And when we say tomorrow, this is the releases that we're working on actively today, specifically Vision 7.5, which has a target release of the 4th quarter of this year, probably around the late November timeframe for on-premise, and then the 1st quarter for our cloud customers of 2016 is when they'll see this Vision 7.5 release. This is another full feature release, jam-packed with a lot of functionality, which you'll see here in a second. Task dependencies phase 2. As I said, we looked at these task dependencies in 2 phases. We'll talk about what phase 2 is all about. A significant new piece of functionality that we're calling employee in multiple companies. For some of you that are familiar with Vision, specifically in the multi-company context, you've probably heard about this previously as the ability to transfer employees between companies. We've looked at it a little bit differently, and we're calling it employee in multiple companies. Talk about that in a little bit more detail in a second. Some GL budgeting enhancements, a new area for approvals. In terms of phase 2 of the new approval engine. We'll talk about that in more detail. Some enhancements to the pre-invoicing functionality, a new feature called commission reporting, a brand new module called asset management. We'll talk about what that means. Some improvements around document management and bank reconciliation, and then enhancements to our CRM and capture management solutions. Again, this release targeted for Q4 of 2015 for on-premise and Q1 of 2016 for our cloud customers. But let's talk about some of these items in a little bit more detail to give you a better sense of what will be coming here in 2015 for at least the core product to start with. So first off, our asset management module. We've seen primarily, as I said earlier, a lot of chatter around the purchasing application in recent years. And as a result, we've also heard a lot of requests around asset management for Vision. Obviously, as many of your organizations are using Vision to sort of manage the entire life cycle of many aspects of your operations within your companies, the more you can do inside of Vision, the better. So we're looking at, or we will be introducing a new asset management module with the Vision 7.5 release this year. And this will include a dedicated info center to track your assets, equipment directly within Vision, just like other info center works. And then this will be integrated with the Vision purchasing application and the accounting modules. So this will be project-centric asset management, if you will, so that you can integrate this into your projects as a part of the project delivery, as well as the Vision purchasing process and the accounting process as well. Also give you the ability to depreciate those assets over time and to make the journal entries that are associated with that depreciation process as well. And then, of course, as you'd expect, reporting functionality around the module as well, so that you can report on your assets, report on depreciation, and that type of thing. So very excited about this brand new asset management module. We feel that it can serve as the asset management solution for many of your organizations, and we're excited to get that out there and have Vision using organizations start to use Vision for asset management as well. The employee in multiple companies, this is a perennial request from many of our multi-company users, the ability to use employees in multiple companies. Today, the way Vision works is an employee can only be active in a single company at a time. So the way this, the genesis of this particular feature really started out with the request for the ability to transfer an active employee from one company to the next. But what we've been looking at as we've developed how we're going to support this functionality, we came to the conclusion that actually having an employee be active in multiple companies simultaneously is a better way to approach this. An employee would still have a quote-unquote home company that identifies sort of their current place of employment, if you will, but they will be able to be active in multiple companies at the same time. So you'll have company-specific fields as a part of sort of maintaining that employee record. And as I said, employees can be active in multiple companies for processing, but they have that home company, which is where their current employment is taking place. And then, of course, reporting enhancements to support this sort of employee in multiple companies will be done as well. So we're pretty excited about this feature as well, because as we looked at transferring employees between companies and the magnitude of that feature, we really have found that this employee in multiple companies is going to be a much better way to solve this problem and fulfill this enhancement request for our multi-company customers. So stay tuned for much more of that as we start to refine how this is going to work, and we think it's really going to meet those needs of our multi-company users. Task dependencies phase 2, as I said, we're delivering task dependencies in really 2 phases here. And really what this means for phase 2 is in phase 1 we got all of the plumbing and got all of this task dependency functionality wired up. And what we're doing in phase 2 is really refining it and integrating it deeper into the project planning. For example, we have this new schedule tab that houses the task dependency functionality. We want to integrate that a little bit tighter to the labor tab. So one of the things that we're doing is adding some prompts and adding some more linkage between the schedule tab and the labor tab. The ability to set finish to start relationships for all items in a group is something that we're adding as a part of the Vision 7.5 phase 2 of task dependency. And then some improvements to the interface as well. As we've tested and used the new task dependency functionality, we've identified a lot of interface improvements that we can make to just make it more visually appealing and visually understandable. So we're making some changes there as well in terms of how the relationships are represented graphically. And then also some new functionality in terms of how predecessors are selected from within the WBS tree, and some a little bit more intuitive in terms of how that selection process works and how you can drag and drop and move things around. So again, phase 2 is really about taking it to the next level in terms of what we've introduced in phase 1 for task dependency. One of the other things that you'll see that we're doing within phase 2 of task dependency is also representing some of the task dependency information within the project planning reporting as well. So with the approval engine functionality that we introduced in Vision 7.4, as I said, that was phase 1, getting that new approval engine foundation in place and then taking it to the next level in future releases and applying it to other areas of the product. So 2 new areas of the product that you're going to see approvals in Vision 7.5. The first is AP invoice approvals. So very similar to how we introduced invoice approvals for client invoices in Vision 7.1, we're now going to have an invoice approval functionality for AP invoices. This will be integrated with transactional document management so that you can attach these AP invoices as a part of the approval. And you'll also be able to create vouchers from the approved AP invoices. Now, as I said, this is going to be based on the new approval engine that we introduced in Vision 7.4. So these will be multi-tier, delegatable, as well as conditional AP invoice approvals. And then the other area that we're going to apply this new approval engine to is absence requests or vacation requests or PTO requests, whatever your organization calls them. So what users will be able to do is be able to request time off and have that sort of integrated with the timesheet process. So if I'm an employee and I want to request a week off, I can go into my timesheet or into the time and expense area, select the time that I want off, and that'll start an approval process to my supervisor to have that time off approved. And then just some other things that we're doing to the approval engine itself in terms of things that we've learned since introducing the approval engine in Vision 7.4. One, we're adding an approval workflow report so that administrators can see how approvals are configured without having to, switch through a whole bunch of different screens, configuration screens. We're also adding some error validation so that you can see where an approval approval workflow might break down as a result of how you have it designed. And then better logic in regards to failures. For example, if a workflow, approval workflow is assigned to an employee that then gets terminated, obviously that workflow is never going to get completed. So some logic in the system to track and monitor those types of failures. Again, just some refinements to the approval engine itself that we've learned we needed to do with the initial release of the approval engine in Vision 7.4. Some improvements that we're making in Vision 7.5 to the CRM side of the product as well as the proposal side. We are introducing a brand new report. We're calling it the Client Touch Status Report. And essentially what this is it gives you the ability to look at clients within your organization and get a very quick and good feeling for how recently they've been touched, talked to, interacted with. You can see a screenshot of what this initial design is for this particular report, and you can see that I've got my client names listed there. I can see the last activity with that particular client. I can see who the principal is that's assigned to this particular client. And then we have some color coding that'll tell me, someone is assigned to manage this client. If they're not, it's red. If the person that is assigned is not active, but there is an assignment, it's yellow, and if it is assigned, it's green. And then you also have some color coding for the last activity. And you'll be able to set the thresholds and how these colors work, but you can see this example has, if it's green, if they've been contacted within the last month, it's yellow if they have been contacted in the past 1 to 3 months, and it's red or a light red if it's been more than 3 months since the client has been contacted. So again, this report is really meant to give you the ability to see sort of where you are in terms of managing and cultivating those client relationships that are so critical to sort of feeding the pipeline for your organization. Another perennial enhancement request that we're going to fulfill in the 7.5 release is adding activities to vendors. We have activities in just about all of the other info centers today, but we don't have them in vendors. We will be adding activities for vendors in Vision 7.5. And then some of the other things around proposals, the ability to include totals from the Opportunity Service Estimate tab within our fee proposals, easier selection of projects, graphics, and text for resumes in the project sheets as you're building a proposal. And then the other thing, too, we introduced the ability to merge out proposals to InDesign back in Vision 7.1, and as a result, customers have started using that, thankfully, and we've gotten feedback from it. So one of the things that we want to be able to do is to be able to merge several records into one InDesign page. Today, they would result in separate pages for each record, but with Vision 7.5, you will be able to merge multiple records into a single page using the InDesign functionality. Commission reporting, this is a simple new feature, but it's something we're hearing more requests for. And really it's the ability to define sales targets by employees. For those of you familiar with the contract management functionality that was introduced way back in Vision 7.0, this builds on that functionality because with contract management, you can assign sales, if you will, to employees within your organization. And what we're doing with commission reporting is the ability to define targets so that you can report against those targets using the contract management assignments in what we're calling this commission report. So again, it allows you to see how employees are doing in terms of their sales against targets that have been defined for those employees. We're also doing some enhancements and refinements to GL and budgeting. Specifically for the GL, we are giving you the ability to include key financial metrics on the GL reports. And then as far as budgeting goes, this gets to more forecasting, sort of similar to the changes that we did to the Profit Planning Monitor report. That is the ability to review monthly forecasts across fiscal years versus just a single fiscal year. And then some other minor things that we're doing, but again, the result of lots of requests that we get out there is some enhancements to bank reconciliation, the ability to import a bank statement from your bank. Very similar, if you're familiar with the new credit card functionality that we introduced in Vision 7.3, very similar to how that works in terms of importing a credit card statement. You'll now be able to import a bank statement and have that match bank transactions with Vision transactions. And then also the ability to create entries for bank charges and interest revenue from within the bank reconciliation functionality. Again, these are both responses to enhancement requests that we see very, very frequently around bank reconciliation. So that's the core enhancements that we're looking at for Vision 7.5, again targeted for Q4 of this year. Probably late November is where that's going to end up. So let's talk a little bit about what we're looking at for both Navigator and Touch for this year as well. For both Navigator and Touch, we are doing 2 releases this year. We're doing a June release and then a November release. So the June release of Navigator 2.1, pretty exciting release, not from a functional perspective necessarily around the project management workspace and employee workspace, but definitely in terms of CRM and business development. The big thing that we're doing with this June release of Navigator is an overhaul to the user interface. And you can see from the screenshots here what this new user interface that will look like. Navigator's been out there for about 2.5 years. We've gotten a ton of feedback on what's working, what's not, what people like, what people don't like, and we've completely overhauled the user interface as a result. So the big thing for both the project management workspace and the employee workspace for this release of Navigator is this new interface. However, the other big thing for this release of Navigator in June is the introduction of the business development workspace. And from that business development workspace, you'll be able to access all of the core CRM functionality, the ability to track opportunities, clients, contacts, and what we're calling touch points, which is really just a lightweight activity directly from within the Navigator interface. And again, this is targeted for a release in June of this year. Wanted to throw this screenshot up here so you could get a glimpse into what this new interface looks like. This is the business development workspace within Navigator, and we're looking at an opportunity record. We've really focused on making this new interface a lot more heads up. In other words, I can do just about everything I need to do looking at everything on my screen. I can change the status of this from active to inactive. I can change the revenue, the probability, all of those types of things directly from within a screen without having to go into save and different edit modes and things like that. So we're pretty excited about this new interface, and again, you'll see this with Navigator in the June release. And then the second release of Navigator, which again will be in the Q4 of this year, is when you're going to see some pretty significant new functionality. For the project management workspace, we're introducing the ability to do plans without projects. That is the ability to do what-if scenarios or opportunity planning within the project management workspace in Navigator. Today, you need to have a project within Vision Core before you can start planning it within Navigator. With this 2.2 release later this year, you'll be able to build plans without projects. We're also looking at the ability to initiate a project within the Navigator interface. One of our goals long-term for Navigator is to make it, the one-stop shop for your project managers within your organizations. And we know that one of the things that project managers often do is initiate projects and create new projects. So the ability to do that directly within the Navigator interface is what we're focused on there. And then some changes to how we handle estimate to complete and spreading behaviors as well for the project management workspace. For the employee workspace, one big thing in the second release of Navigator this year, and that is the support for timesheet units within the employee workspace. And then for the business development workspace, adding a dashboard functionality so that you can see sort of pipeline information and my opportunity information around the CRM data that you can get access to from within the business development workspace in Navigator. And then for Touch, we're also doing 2 releases, one in June and one in Q4 or November. The June release is going to introduce timesheet approvals and timesheet auditing to the Touch Time and Expense app. So the ability to approve timesheets from within the Touch Time and Expense app. And then also, if you're familiar with the Touch timesheet, or I'm sorry, the timesheet auditing functionality that we introduced in Vision 7.2, today that functionality is not available within Touch timesheets, and we will be making that available in the June release of Touch as well. And then the Touch CRM application will get activity editing and creation in the June release of Touch as well. Today you can view activities in Touch CRM. With the Touch 1.5 release in June, you'll be able to edit and create activities. And then the second release of Touch this year will also come in Q4 or November timeframe. For Touch Time and Expense, we will include the ability to approve expense reports. And then for CRM, some usability enhancements, and then for both applications, Touch Time and Expense and Touch CRM, translating those applications into the languages that Vision supports as well. So then looking, beyond 2015 and into 2016 for both the core product and Navigator and Touch, we have a lot of stuff that we're thinking about. Obviously, this gets a little bit less specific because these are themes, and some of the stuff that we're starting to focus and research for beyond 2015. Enhancements around credit cards. We introduced credit card functionality in Vision 7.3. We want to do some enhancements there based on feedback that we're getting. Intercompany billing enhancements is something that we're looking at making some improvements around. Billing processing, taking feedback that we're getting from all of you in terms of changes you would like to see around billing processing. The ability to do per diem expense reporting is something we're hearing a lot about and plan on introducing in the 2016 release. Payment processing and account transaction enhancements. Again, this focuses on enhancement requests and feedback that we're getting from all of you. We know there's some things that we can do to enhance those areas of the product, and we're looking to carve out some time in 2016 to do that. Consolidations below company level for multi-company organizations is something we're looking at for a 2016 release. The purchasing enhancements, I'll be honest, we don't necessarily know what these are yet. We have some things queued up for this, but with the improvements that we made to purchasing in Vision 7.4, we're going to let that stew out there in the market for a year or so and then start looking at some enhancements that we want to make as a result of the feedback that we're getting on the new and improved purchasing module. Billing, invoice, and backup report enhancements. Again, this sort of builds on what we did in Vision 7.4 for the invoice template editor. And then the other thing that we're looking at, today with the credit card functionality, those are really meant for company-paid credit cards in terms of expense reports. And what we're looking at doing in 2016 is adding support for non-company-paid credit cards to build on what we've already done for credit card functionality in Vision 7.3. HCM and HRIS, Human Capital Management and HRIS, this is something that we're committed to, and you'll hear more information about this, I think, from Deltek in 2015 into 2016 in terms of being able to meet your HR and human capital management needs with products like Vision and perhaps some products even beyond Vision. For project planning, the ability to do multiple baselines, this is one of the most frequent requests we get around project planning, multiple baselines within a project plan, and then again some additional task dependency enhancements as well based on some things that we're learning to the new task dependency functionality. Beyond core, looking at Navigator and Touch, for the project management workspace and Navigator, percent complete reporting, the ability to view multiple projects and aggregate project information, and then some enhancements to the selection set functionality within the PM workspace. For the employee workspace, approvals for both time and expense, start and stop times, and timesheet and auditing to the timesheet auditing, refinements to the timesheet auditing functionality, and then full support for the credit card functionality that we introduced in Vision 7.3. And then for the business development workspace that we're introducing this year, some enhancement to the reporting and dashboard functionality for the business development workspace, and then additional info centers that we're not covering today, things like leads and that type of thing will be added to the business development workspace as well. And for Touch for 2016, probably the biggest thing that we're looking at is more integration with the device itself. So for example, the CRM side of things integrating with native contacts and calendar functionality so that they're less separate and less fragmented on your device. When you're using that functionality that's a part of Vision, it can become more integrated with the device itself and the calendar and contact information on the device itself. So that gives you a glimpse into the today, tomorrow, and future in the world of Vision. I know that's a lot to take in and a lot of information, but hopefully it also represents how hard we're working on bringing new value to your organizations with the many areas of the Vision product that can create some value for you and your users. And as we look at the timeline for the year ahead. I'm sorry, this slide is actually inaccurately labeled. It should say 2015 release time. My apologies for that. You can see sort of where these lay out from a time perspective. The items circled in clouds are for our cloud customers in terms of when we'll be releasing items to the cloud. So you can see in the April-May timeframe, we'll be releasing Vision 7.4 to our cloud customers. Our next release of Navigator and Touch, as I said earlier, will be in the June timeframe for on-premise customers, and then about 6 to 8 weeks later for our cloud customers. And then in late November, the Q4 timeframe, Vision 7.5, Navigator 2.2, and Touch 1.6 will be released to the market as well. So where does that leave you in terms of a call to action? First of all, I highly recommend you subscribe to the Vision blog at the URL listed here. We're going to have a blog series that will cover a lot of the Vision 7.4 stuff that was just released to the market, so you can learn more about that there. I encourage you to go to the Deltek website and check out live demos for the Vision Performance Management module, to the CRM module, as well as Resource Planning and Navigator. You can sign up for those things on the events page right on the Deltek.com website, and allows you to learn a lot more about what's going on in addition to what you've learned here today. For those of you interested in perhaps moving your Vision solution to the cloud, we have a cloud solution through our Deltek First Cloud. Same powerful Vision solution, only it's delivered to you via the cloud. It's easy to buy, simple to own, and of course secure to access. And if you want some more information on moving your Vision solution to the cloud, we're approaching just about 600 customers that are hosted within the Deltek First Cloud for the Vision solution today. So if you want more information about that, go to our Deltek.com website and check out our cloud information there. The other thing I wanted to bring up from a call to action perspective, some of you may be familiar with the GovWin IQ market intelligence solution that we have, which has been historically focused primarily on the federal level government contracting market, but we just introduced a new state and local offering for architecture and engineering projects. It really brings public sector market intelligence to you. Market analysis teaches you how to team with partners and understand the profiles of the people that are buying, and you can see opportunities out there across state and local entities, thousands of these opportunities that are out there, and you can learn how to go after them and get intelligence on how to go after them and learn about the buyers that are advertising these opportunities that are out there. So again, if you want more information about this new state and local architecture and engineering offering for GovWin IQ, I encourage you to go to our website and check out the GovWin IQ information. And finally, plan that upgrade. If you haven't upgraded to Vision 7.4 yet, start making those plans, because you can see all of the value that you can get of the solution if you're on the most recent release. And if you want more information, talk to your account manager or partner. If you have questions and you want to get some direct feedback from the Vision product management team, I encourage you to use this email address, send your questions to this email address, and we'll do our best to answer your questions or direct you to someone within the Vision or within the Deltek organization that can answer your questions. And that brings me to the end of the prepared content for this. We've got a few minutes here for questions. I'm actually not seeing any questions quite yet, so let me take a look at what we have for questions here and see what I might be able to answer and go from there. So looking through my questions here, it looks like quite a few have come in. Let me take a look. So one of the questions, can we access Navigator from an iPad? Absolutely, you can access Navigator from an iPad. That's really one of the reasons we introduced Navigator, is so that we had a solution that was tablet friendly. So yes, you can access Navigator from an iPad. Is Navigator a purchase module, or does it come standard with upgrades? Navigator, everything that you've seen from Navigator up till today and so far is included with the core product. It's not a separate module, not something that needs to be purchased separately. You get Navigator with the core product. One thing that I will point out in that regard is the business development workspace, which includes all of the CRM functionality. You need to own Vision CRM to access the CRM functionality that's available within Navigator. But again, Navigator is not a separate module that needs to be purchased. It is included with the core product. And the same goes for Touch. I'm seeing another question here that sort of asks the same question about Touch. Our mobile applications are included with the core product. You don't have to purchase Touch time and expense separately. If you are a Touch time and expense or a Vision time and expense user, you get the Touch time applications as a part of the product. Same goes for Touch CRM. If you own Vision CRM, you get Touch CRM. No additional purchase there. When we upgrade Touch, do we need to delete the app? No, you don't have to delete the app. It works just like other apps from the App Store for iOS and from Google Play. You'll get notified that there's a new version out there that you need to upgrade to. One of the questions, if you're on the cloud, we're upgraded to 7.4 already. No, you have not been upgraded to 7.4. The upgrade to 7.4 for cloud customers is going to come in late April, early May. You should have started to get correspondence on that upgrade already. But again, that's scheduled for, I believe, early May at this point. There's a question here, does this mean we can have Deltek in French? Vision is translated to the French language. I would encourage you to contact your account manager to get more information on using the language packs that are available within Vision. Is the fee estimate available if we don't have the opportunity module? No, it is part of CRM, so you would need to have the CRM module to see the fee estimating tool within opportunities. I'm just scrolling through my questions here because I've answered some of these already. How does the fee estimate recorded in the opportunity get transferred to the Project Info Center? It allows you to build the WBS from the fee estimate itself. So the costing information doesn't get transferred to the Project Info Center, but the work breakdown structure from the fee estimate allows you to build the work breakdown structure within the Project Info Center. Can we upgrade directly from 7.4 to 7.4 from 7.2? Yes, you can. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm scrolling through. Lots of questions came in. And while I'm scrolling through here, I'll just point out as well the email address that you see on the screen here. If your question doesn't get answered here, because I see we have gone past the top of the hour now, if your question doesn't get answered here, I'll take a few more before we finish up here today. But if your question doesn't get answered here, feel free to shoot off an email to that email address. And like I said, myself or someone from within the Vision Product Management team will get back to you as soon as we can on that question if your question doesn't get answered here today. Which module is project planning test dependency in? If you own the resource planning module, you will get the test dependency functionality. Can you skip an upgrade, for example, go from 7.3 to 7.5? Yes, you can for the most part. Depends how far back you are. Say, for example, you're running a 5.x version of Vision today. That upgrade is a little bit less direct. Can still be done, of course, but a little bit less direct. But you can definitely go from 7.1 to 7.4, 7.2 to 7.4, 7.3 to 7.4, et cetera. You don't have to take every upgrade. You can skip them. Question about asset management. Will it be a separate module? Yes, that will be a separate module. It won't be included with the core product. It will be something that you'll have to purchase separately as a separate module. There's a question about Vision 7.4 was released in January. Emails tell it will be released in May of 2015. You're probably a cloud customer. So if you're on-premise, Vision 7.4 is available today. You can go to our Deltek Software Manager and download it. As I said earlier, if you are a cloud customer, we normally wait about 6 to 8 weeks after a release after we deliver a release to introduce it into the cloud. So keep that in mind, that the reason you may not see 7.4 yet is because you're a cloud customer. Does Touch 1.5 require Vision 7.4? Yes, it will. 1.5 will require Vision 7.4. Oh, here's an interesting question. How do you request enhancements that you'd like to see in future release? You can submit enhancement requests through customer care, just like you'd submit a customer care case. You can submit an enhancement request that won't count against your case count. It'll go in as an enhancement request, and the customer care analyst will make sure that it gets to the right spot. So that's how you can submit your enhancement request. Is Touch real-time updates to the database? Yes, it is. There's no synchronization with our mobile applications. You are hitting the database live. There's a question here from cloud customers. Any progress on allowing cloud users to integrate with Newforma? One thing to point out is we are introducing ODBC functionality or connectivity for cloud customers later this quarter. That will allow for integrations with products like Newforma. I want to point out that it's not Deltek's responsibility to integrate you with Newforma. That would be something that you would do, and you'd work with Newforma to make happen. But with the ODBC connectivity that we'll be introducing as part of the cloud offering later this quarter, you will be enabled to do that. There's a question about how long will 7.2 be supported. What I would encourage you to do whenever you have a question like that is go onto the customer care website from Deltek and go to the the product lifecycle page. That'll give you all the information you need at any point in time in terms of where we are with support for our various versions of Vision. Let's see, I'll take one more question, and I think we'll finish up for the day here. So here's a good one, I think a good one to end on. Can you use project planning for scheduling from within Navigator without the resource management module? Yes, you can. You do not need the resource planning module to build project plans in Navigator. Navigator is included with the core product. All of the functionality that's available within Navigator today is available with no need for the resource planning module. So you can build project plans, you can do all the stuff that we've shown in regards to the project management workspace in Navigator without the resource planning module. And with that, I see we're about 6 minutes past the hour. I appreciate everyone for sticking around to hear some of the questions and answers. Again, if your question did not get an answer, I encourage you to shoot an email to the address that you see on the screen here, and we will do our best to get back to you as quickly as we can to answer those questions appropriately. Again, you will be getting a recording of this event as well as the slides to reference in an email that will go out tomorrow to all attendees, so stay tuned for that. We appreciate you taking the time today to be a part of this webinar. I hope it was useful for everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very, very much.